Welcome to AI Predicts FPL, where I ask Grok and ChatGPT to pick the best possible fantasy team for each week. In this video, we're going to see how they did last week, what the new selections are, and then the running totals. Just super quick, if you enjoy this kind of content, I'd really appreciate a subscribe and a like on the video. It means a lot to a small channel like me. It really would go a long way. But anyway, let's jump into it. All right, so let's kick off with how the teams did last week, and we'll start with Grok. I'm just going to be looking off camera a little bit because I've got another screen up and looking at the same thing you are. So here we go. Yeah, Grok FC got 74 points, which is not bad, the average being 58 for this week. It was one of those weeks I think you just needed to captain Haaland, right? Like if you didn't, you probably got behind. I did say in the last video that it was one of those weeks where you could potentially go against Haaland for a captain, maybe captaining Saka or Mateta or something like that. But that ended up turning out to be very ill-advised. So sorry if anyone took that advice from me. Apologies. Yeah, okay, so let's start in goal. We've got Sanchez for a one-pointer. You know, a bit of a disappointing loss there against Leeds it was. Mateus Nunes, 2 points. Kind of disappointing again. I mean, Man City's defence, they're scoring a lot of goals, but their defence is looking very, very shaky. But they keep getting picked. The AI keeps picking Man City defenders, so there might be something in the data there. Milenkovic got 6 points as they got a clean sheet against Wolves, so not a bad return there. Van Dijk getting 4 points, disappointing draw against Sunderland, but, 4 points is still decent. That's a return in my eyes. Jurien Timber, who actually didn't start the game. Ben White started for the first time in a long time, but he did come on and get that 1-pointer. So, I mean, the alternative was Esteve on this one, which would have got an extra 3 points, but you're not going to play Esteve over Timber, are you? That's one of those things. Saka was another one who didn't start but came on and scored a goal, which is it's great for owners, unless you had someone on the bench who scored more, which probably you didn't. Adley, I said this last week, was a bit of a strange pick. He did start, but maybe he's like a cheap enabler or something to fit, Foden, Saka, Haaland and Isak in all at the same time. 1 point, you can't expect too much from that. Star of the week, absolute star of the week was Phil Foden. 17 points there, unbelievable haul. And he's looking like he's pretty much nailed in on that in that midfield there for the foreseeable future at least. Pedro Neto got 6 points, in a disappointing Chelsea performance. So I think Neto, whether Chelsea's form is off or on, and it normally is on, I think he's a great pick. He's really nailed on that right wing, and he's constantly getting returns. He's been on really good form in terms of FPL and in real life as well. Then we move on to Haaland. Got 2 assists and a goal, which is a little bit beyond expectation, I guess. But 14 points there. If you captained him, getting 28 points, that's good. That's what you want from your captain. And then Alexander Isak, I'm not sure the models will be choosing this guy very much in the future. Really disappointing. He's only got 1 goal at Liverpool so far. Liverpool in general are looking really shaky and dodgy. Don't know what's going on with them. But personally, I'm going to be avoiding Liverpool assets for the foreseeable future myself. Just very briefly on the bench, we've got Martin Dubravka for 2, Elliot Anderson for 2, Mark Guiu for 1, and then we discussed Esteve's 4-pointer. So there's Team Grok, decent score overall. Let's move on to ChatGPT. Okay, so here's Team ChatGPT. Did slightly worse, I mean, a fair bit worse than Grok, getting 59 points, 1 point above the average. And the reason here you'll see is because it decided to go against captaining Haaland for once, which was, I thought, interesting. Saka, if he would have started, probably would have got a better haul. He came on for a few minutes and got a goal. So points per minute, it was a good shout, but I didn't think anyone really expected Saka to not start. Obviously, he's going to get a rest at some point, but he's one of those players you don't really need to rest. His fitness is through the roof. He's really important to the team. So yeah, a bit unlucky there. So Sanchez, we had that again. We had that already, with Grok. Same with Virgil, same with Timber. Great shout on Daniel Munoz, who got 14 points again. I think he's got back-to-back double-digit hauls now. I think they're both 14-pointers. So really good shout there. Declan Rice, I thought that was an interesting choice, but only got 3 points. And Doy, another interesting one. Actually, it was quite funny because ChatGPT originally picked Morgan Gibbs-White, who had a yellow flag. So I said, no, choose someone else because Gibbs-White I think is injured, and he actually did end up playing. Although, I'm not sure I can't remember who scored the goal. So he might have returned Let me know in the comments if Gibbs White did return, because then I might have cheated ChatGPT out of some points there. So Ndoye got 3 points, which isn't the end of the world, right? 3 points is, like I said before in the videos, it's right on that threshold of not quite a blank, but not quite a return either. So, you know, not too bad. Antoine Semenyo next got 4 points. You know, I think he's a really good asset to have. He's kind of like the talisman for Bournemouth. He's their penalty taker. He's just an incredible player. I think he'll probably move on in the summer. I imagine he'll be in high demand for like the sort of bigger teams. So yeah, 4 points isn't great, but you know, it's better than some players are doing, particularly those Liverpool players. Yeah, so then we have Saka for 12 points because he was captained, like we said in the previous one. Bit unlucky he didn't start. I think he probably could have got like a proper decent haul if he did start. There you go. That's what happens sometimes in FPL. Cody Gakpo's next for 1 point. Very disappointing. Liverpool, I thought they were like, getting some form back again, and then 1-1 draw to Sunderland, which isn't bad because Sunderland are in a really good run of form themselves, but this is Liverpool. This is the current defending champions of the Premier League, and they look terrible. So yeah, Gakpo, bad choice there. Haaland for his 14-pointer. We've talked about that. Really should be captaining him. That was, in hindsight at least, it was a smart choice. I think even at the time it was the smartest choice. And then we've got Jean-Philippe Mateta for 2 points. Disappointing again. The bench, which didn't do too bad actually. So we've got Dubravka. Obviously, we've talked about him. We've talked about Guiu. And then Reinildo, who played against Liverpool, got 4 points, which actually is not a bad haul for a newly promoted defence against the current champions. That's a great score, relatively speaking. And then we had Savona for Nottingham Forest, who got 6 points for that clean sheet. So, maybe if Timber, well, actually no, because he was last place. So even if Timber didn't play any minutes, he wouldn't have Reinildo would have come on for him and got 3 extra points, but there we go. Okay, so there are the last week's scores. Let's move on to the new selections. Okay, so let's start off with Grok's new selection, and we'll start with the goalkeeper. So you can see on screen here, we have got Jordan Pickford of Everton, who plays Nottingham Forest at home. I don't mind that pick at all. Jordan Pickford is an expensive goalkeeper, 5.5 million. But I think he tends to be worth the money season on season. Everton don't really perform that well, but they can be very rigid in defence. And Pickford gets clean sheets occasionally. And the important thing of him is he's getting so many save points. He's not too bad for bonus, that kind of thing. So I like that pick a lot. We've got, moving on to the defence, we've got Mateus Nunes in there. Again, Grok absolutely loves Nunes at the moment. It's a really good fixture. I think you've got to have Man City in here. So, if you're doing a free hit or a wild card or something like that, you want to load up on, you want to get a triple Man City, and I think I would anyway. Then we've got Malik Thiaw of Newcastle, who's been locking down that centre-back spot recently. Burnley at home, it's a great fixture to attack, and he is popping up with the odd goal as well. So it's a really good pick. Like Thiaw a lot. I'd probably have him in my team if I had a couple more transfers. I don't have any free transfers at the moment. So then we have Jurien Timber, who's, feels just like a bit of a lock at the moment. You got Gabriel and Saliba injured. Timber, I mean, I say he's an absolute lock. He didn't start the other day, but I think that's just because he's been playing too many minutes and he needed a rest. I think he'll be back in action against Aston Villa, who are a team that Arsenal need to put their full focus on because they're doing really well. They've snuck up into 3rd place, I think, recently. So yeah, they're a tough opponent, and I think Arsenal will have to expend their strongest squad in order to try and beat them away as well at Villa Park. So I like that back line a lot. Let's move on to the midfield. We're starting off with Bukayo Saka, who again, was rested, and therefore probably it makes sense that he starts the next game. Aston Villa away isn't a very easy fixture, but Arsenal are by far the best team in the league at the moment. They're the only consistent team, really. Man City are doing well, but that 5-4 scoreline against Fulham is like, a bit dodgy. Liverpool look dodgy. Everyone does. Chelsea losing against Leeds lately. So it makes sense, even though it's a tough fixture, I think Arsenal, just no matter who they play, they've got chances to have points and score FPL points. Sorry, we've seen it. We beat Bayern Munich fairly comfortably not too long ago. So yeah, Arsenal. I don't think it really matters what the fixture is. Then we've got Harvey Barnes. Okay, we've got a double up so far on Newcastle. Harvey Barnes has been in excellent form. The fixture is probably one of the best you could get, other than Wolves, who are awful. So I like the Harvey Barnes pick a lot. If I was on a free hit, I would absolutely be picking triple Newcastle, and Barnes would probably be in there. Then we've got Bruno Fernandes, who plays for Man United, who real up and down team, like we all know, but they're playing Wolves. Anyone who plays Wolves at the moment, you've got a chance to score and score quite a few. Man United are one of those teams that I can see Wolves getting their first win of the season against, just because they're so inconsistent. You know what I mean? They could beat Man City one week and then lose against Wolves the next week. It's hard to predict what Man United are going to do. Just recently against West Ham, they were disappointing. That's a game they should have won. So, maybe Wolves have a chance here, but I like the Fernandes pick. He's very expensive, and I don't think I'd really have him in my team because, there's just money I'd rather spend elsewhere. For example, Phil Foden, right, who we'll get onto next. But he's on penalties, and yeah, like I've explained, they're playing Wolves. I'd probably pick a Burnley asset if they were playing against Wolves. Wolves are so bad. 2 points so far in total, and I think that's the joint worst record in the Premier League up to this point in history. So yeah, really want to target that fixture. Then we've got Phil Foden coming off his 17-pointer, which is incredible. He's got Sunderland at home. The only thing I think about this pick that might be slightly negative is that he may be benched. Sunderland, they're not an easy fixture at all. We've seen that. But in terms of how squads on paper look, you'd think Man City are pretty clear favourites here, and you'd think that Sunderland are bound to run out of form soon, right? They've just been promoted, and they're battling for European spot already. So, I mean, they've been incredible. They've been really, really outperforming everyone's expectations. But I do think Foden and the Man City attackers have a real good chance of getting another big haul. The last midfielder, we've got Minte, who plays against West Ham at home. I don't mind that. West Ham aren't the easy fixture they used to be at the start of the season. They've started to sort of become a bit stronger under Nuno Espirito. So yeah, but Brighton are at home. Brighton are a pretty potent attack, and Minte looks like he's getting involved in almost everything they do. Except from last week, actually, when all the haul went to, was it Van Hecke who scored 2 goals? What a score that was! Excuse me. So I really like the Minte pick. It would be nice, if he was on penalties, then he would be an absolutely incredible pick. But yeah, Minte, he's in my personal team. I'm happy to keep him, happy to play him in the start 11 for this fixture. Good pick. I think that's a really, really, really nice midfield. I don't think you get too much better than that, actually. Now onto the forward line, we've got Haaland as captain. Of course, that just makes the most sense. It always has done. It's we saw ChatGPT last week go against Haaland and pay for it. So great pick. Don't need to say too much. He's a goal machine. He's a monster. He's playing Sunderland at home. Easy, right? And then finally, we've got Nick Voltemade, who plays against Burnley. Another fantastic pick. This team looks really good. I would expect this team to get 70, 80, maybe even high 80s, low 90s points this week. Really, really strong-looking squad. Voltemade, I mean, looks like he's on penalties, I think, unless I'm wrong. You might want to correct me on that. Maybe it's Anthony Gordon. But, I mean, there's that clip of Voltemade's penalty earlier in the season. Everyone just going nuts about it because it was one of the cleanest penalties you'll ever see. He's just absolutely tucked it with 100 miles an hour into the top corner. It's just no chance. 2 keepers wouldn't have got to it. So just based on that, I think everyone's pretty confident he's on penalties. So there we go. Just briefly onto the bench. We've got Dubravka. Every week we have Dubravka on the bench. No need to keep discussing that. Joachim Andersen, I like that as a first bench spot just in case someone doesn't play. He's such an amazing player for DEFCON points. I think he's averaging 12 or 13 DEFCON points a game, which is, you're getting those 2 DEFCONs every single time, even if he doesn't, get a clean sheet or anything. So what you're getting there is if he plays over 60 minutes, that's 2 points. He gets his defensive contributions pretty much every single game. That's a baseline of 4 points. So, it's a really good starting point. If he concedes 2 goals, he loses a point. But at least you've got that nice foundation for him. He's a really good asset, I think. Then we've got Mark Guiu and Joe Rodon, who, won't play in all likelihood, but they're cheap. Rodon's a great asset just for a bench filler. And if he does need to play every now and then, you can play him. Mark Guiu, he's just the cheapest forward on there. So there's Team Grok. Let's move on to ChatGPT. Okay, here it is, Team ChatGPT, and we'll start in goal again. We've got Gianluigi Donnarumma. So we're sticking with the Man City defence. I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I think you can do slightly better. I think maybe like a David Raya this week. I don't know, actually. Aston Villa away, that's pretty tough. Yeah, I guess Donnarumma's up there with the good selections here. He's a bit expensive. He doesn't always score all that high, but keepers aren't all that important to me in FPL. I'm just going to try and save as much money. Like, I had Nick Pope in, and I was hoping to just set and forget with him, but now he's injured just ahead of the Burnley fixture, which is really annoying. So yeah, Donnarumma's okay, I guess. Not something I'd particularly go for, but on a free hit potentially. And this is what this feature basically is we're not looking for a future plan or anything. Just what's the best team for this week. So makes sense, I guess. So Tiao and Timber are in ChatGPT's team as well as Grok. So we've talked about them. Both good picks. Both make sense. And then we've got James Tarkowski of Everton, who plays Nottingham Forest at home. So Grok invested in the Everton defence, picking Pickford. But and yeah, so it's a very similar backline actually, except the goalkeeper of Man City and the defender of Everton have been switched around. So we had Pickford and Nunez for Team Grok, and we've got Donnarumma and Tarkowski. So yeah, those defenses are being back this week. I like Tarkowski. He's good for defensive contributions. He's a little bit on the expensive side for a team like Everton, who don't win all that many games and do concede goals, but yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. I think you could probably do a little bit better than that. I'm not too sure. Maybe, well, you'll see on the bench, there's a player I think maybe could squeeze into that starting 11 instead of Tarkowski, but we'll get to that. Onto the midfield. Okay, so we're starting off with Mohamed Kudus. Interesting pick here. Tottenham, another, team that just their form is all over the place. But Kudus, they can still score goals. That's the thing. We saw them score 3 against PSG, 2 against Newcastle. They're not got a really real problem in front of goal. It's more in defence that that the problem is. So Mohamed Kudus, I don't mind that. He's really good for expected assists. His goal threat isn't all that much, but I don't mind that. Then we've got so we'll talk about the two Man United players at once, because we've got Amad Diallo and Bryan Mbeumo, both selected, both starting for Team ChatGPT. So the Wolves fixture, that makes a lot of sense. I do like that. I've seen like a few FPL content creators say the same thing, that like Amad seems to be in the algorithms, and AI likes Amad for some reason, even though he's playing right wing back. So personally, I don't really like that pick all that much. He's not got too much goal threat. He's in a right wing back position rather than right wing, out and out right wing. I don't know. He's a great player. He's very skilled. He's more likely to get an assist than a goal, I'd say. But yeah, there you go. I mean, there's something in that, I guess. Bryan Mbeumo is a bit different. It makes a bit more sense. He has plenty of goal threat. He's probably, is he Man United's top scorer at the moment? I think so. Fantastic player. Wolves away. Wolves, you just got to target that. You've got to target that fixture. So yeah, okay, I don't mind that. I think maybe they could have, ChatGPT could have shuffled it around and got a Bruno Fernandes in there, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, then we've got Antoine Semenyo. A bit of an interesting pick because he's playing Chelsea, although Bournemouth are at home. But I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Semenyo's in my team. He's not going anywhere for the foreseeable future. He's fantastic. So yeah, that's not a bad pick. And then we've got Phil Foden, probably one of the most obvious picks on if you're doing a free hit this week. We've talked about him in Grok's team. Just do a really good pick. And then we've got the same front line. We've got Haaland captain and Nick Voltemade. So we've talked about that. They're both really good. I like this lineup. I do much prefer Grok's team, to be honest, if I'm being very honest. But ChatGPT is kind of prone to sort of doing wild card kind of stuff, not literal like the wild card chip. I mean sort of unpredictable picks. Like sometimes it picks like really strange ones. Like, not that Tarkovsky's really strange or Amad's really strange pick, but they're not sort of template. They're quite out there. So it is quite interesting to see what the process is. Now let's move on to the bench quickly. And the most interesting one on here, we've got Dubravka, Rodon, Guiu, right? No surprise there. The first spot on the defense, on the bench is Van Hecke, who has just come off a brace, an unbelievable haul, and he plays West Ham at home. So I don't know who's got the most chance of a clean sheet, Everton versus Forest or Brighton versus West Ham. They're about in the same ballpark. But, ChatGPT is elected to go with Tarkowski on the starting 11 rather than Van Hecke. I probably would do that the other way around. I'd probably start Van Hecker, but you know, that's just me. Maybe it's a bit knee-jerky because he's just come off that huge haul, but I like Brighton's chances against West Ham in this game for some reason. So I may be proven right. I'm likely to be proven wrong. But there are the current selections. I should briefly go on to what the overall scores are for the teams, and then we'll wrap it up. Right, here are the overall scores. So we can see we started this on game week 8, so we can't do like a proper overall score or anything, but this is the best we can do, excuse me. Okay, so we can see the game week 14 results mean that Team Grok goes back ahead of ChatGPT, although it is still close. There's only 16 points in it. I think you just need a strong performance from ChatGPT, who has been slightly more consistent, I think. Well, you've got some bigger scores. They got a big 88 pointer from Grok in game week 10, which really put it ahead. And then this most recent game week, 74 points is really good considering the average was 58. So there we go. Team Grok on 413, ChatGPT on 397, and we'll see how that is affected by the upcoming game week. And that is basically the video. I just want to quickly say, if you watched up to this point, thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. It means a lot for a small channel like me. And while you're here, if I could just ask you to subscribe to the channel and like the video, I'd be very, very grateful for that as well. But in any event, thank you very much for watching. Take it easy, and I'll see you in the next one.